Hi guys, grab a drink, light a candle, get comfy because today we're chatting about books. I have a brown sugar boba I made and I added espresso. It's delicious. We're doing the book recommendation tag today, which I think Steph Bohr made, but I also saw Larry Reeds do it. And as an OG YouTube watcher, I love a tag and I don't think I've ever done a tag video before. So I'm very excited. The first one is a book you tell people is your favorite. For me, this is so easy. It's The Hunger Games. If you've watched literally any of my videos, you would probably know this already. I feel like I always talk about it, but The Hunger Games really are my favorite books ever. I read the first one like pretty much right when it came out, I think, and just instantly was obsessed. I was at Barnes & Noble the day Catching Fire came out, the day Mockingjay came out, midnight premiere for the movies, and they are by far the books I have reread the most. I reread them pretty much every year. At least. Is that a cool girl, sophisticated, niche answer? No, but it's the truth. I don't think I will ever feel the way I feel about The Hunger Games with other books. They are my favorite ever. I also have multiple books for like every question because I'm annoying and it's so hard for me to pick favorites. The Hunger Games are definitely my favorite, but if I had to give a different answer more recently in my adult years, the past, couple years, is Emily Henry, of course. Love her so much. The second question is a book that is your guilty pleasure. This was kind of hard for me because I honestly don't get embarrassed about what I read hardly ever because I just don't care. Like, I read what I want to read and it is what it is. But one thing I did think of is the Selection series, and it's because I always hear people talk about the Selection. They say, oh, I loved the Selection in middle school. I read those in 7th grade or in high school. When I was a kid, I loved those books. Guess how old I was when I read the Selection? 23. Let me set the scene. It's June of 2020. Everything is in complete lockdown. I just moved 3,000 miles away with my mom, complete opposite side of the country, jobless, locked up because of COVID in a completely new state, area, part of the country. And I just randomly started reading the first Selection book and something came over me. I could not put those books down. I could not get enough. I read the original trilogy and then I think there's 2 or 3 books about their daughter, and then there's also a book full of novellas about like other characters in the series, and I read all of them in like 5 days. I was in a fugue state. I literally don't know what happened. Like, I was a grown adult and I just couldn't get enough. I've actually been thinking about rereading those recently because in my head I'm like, are they that good or was I just going through something? But those are my guilty pleasure picks because I was a grown-ass woman, like obsessed with those books. Third is a book everyone loved but you didn't. For me, this was before we were strangers. I did read this a long time ago, so it's not super fresh in my mind, but this is like a second chance romance. It's set in New York. So many people love this book. I always see people talking about it and I just didn't like it that much. I didn't hate it, but I found it very predictable and it has a trope that I don't love. And I remember not being obsessed with the characters. Again, I didn't hate it. Like, I don't think it's awful. I definitely get why people like it. It just wasn't for me. And I just always see people raving about this book, so I feel like I'm the odd one out. I also feel this way about It Happened One Summer. That just didn't do it for me for some reason. That book got so much hype when it came out and I think I gave it like 2 stars. I just was not really into it. It happened. 4 is a book you read the fastest. I honestly have a lot for this because I feel like every few months I have a book that I just can't put down and I read super fast. One of those instances for me is the core memory of reading People We Meet on Vacation for the first time. I had just gotten book of the month. I think it was 2021 and I just randomly saw book of the month somewhere and signed up, and one of the books on there for that month was People We Meet on Vacation, and I had never heard of Emily Henry before. And I remember reading the synopsis and just thinking, oh my god, like I'm gonna love that so much. I love to travel, like I loved that aspect of it. So I ordered it and it came and I read it in one sitting. I literally got the package, sat down in my bed and read for like 8 hours straight. I could not put the book down. That was my first ever Emily Henry, and I just always think about that because I love her so much now. And this is like so, like, it's not that deep, but I don't know. Like I said, it's a core memory for me. Next is a book that deserves more hype. I actually, a few weeks ago, did an entire video on romances that I think are underrated. If you want to go watch that, not to be annoying. But a few of the books from that video were The Charm Offensive, The Boyfriend Candidate, How to Honeymoon Alone. There were a bunch, but those are just ones I can think of off the top of my head. I love a good underrated romance because I feel like so many books get hyped up and so many people talk about them, myself included, that it's nice to go into something with lower expectations and just being able to experience it without outside opinions. Next is a book that is becoming a movie or a TV show. This was so hard for me. I looked up a bunch of lists of upcoming adaptations and I hadn't read the books for any of them, which is so weird. I feel like normally there's at least one thing I've read that's being adapted, but there was literally none. I mean, I know Emily Henry's books are getting adapted, but in terms of ones that are actually in production or coming out soon, there were none. So I'm gonna cheat and say a series that came out that I haven't read the book for, but I have the book and I want to read it soon. I don't know if you can see it, but it's One Day. I watched the Netflix series for this when it came out and became obsessed. I loved it so much. I immediately bought the book and I can't wait to read it. I've also been thinking about trying to read the Bridgerton book, but I'm scared because I love the Bridgerton TV show so much that I feel like reading the books will like not ruin that, but it just won't be the same. I don't know. I'm just so emotionally attached to the TV show, specifically the second season. If any of you have read Bridgerton and seen the show, let me know if I should read them or if I should just not bother. If I do read them though, I think I'm only gonna read the ones that have been adapted. Like, I don't want to read the books before the show comes out for the other siblings. I'd rather just not know what happens and watch the show. Next is a book you have reread the most. Like I said, Hunger Games wins by a landslide, but other books I've reread a lot. Sarah Dessen. Sarah Dessen is another author I have just loved for a really long time. I've been reading her books since I think high school, maybe middle school. Actually, I think middle school. And a few of her books have just become comfort reads to me, and there are two in particular I read, again, pretty much every year. Just Listen and The Truth About Forever. The Truth About Forever is my favorite by her. I love it so much. I've read it like 15 times. And I also usually reread The Rest of the Story. That's like one of her newer ones, I'm pretty sure, but since that one has come out, I also have reread that one quite a lot. The Rest of the Story is set at a lake house, so it's very summery, so I like to reread that every summer. And same with The Truth About Forever, that also takes place over the summer. And then Just Listen takes place during the school year, so when fall comes and I'm in the mood for like a YA high school type romance, I always reread that. Also, of course, Emily Henry. I've read all her books I think 3 times. Well, Happy Place I read twice. Funny Story just came out, but the other ones I've read I think 3 times each. Another book I've reread quite a few times, probably 3 or 4 times, is Ready Player One, which leads into the next question, which is a book from a genre you don't typically read. Ready Player One is a sci-fi, I guess, sort of action adventure-y type book, which is not normally what I read. I normally never read sci-fi, but something about Ready Player One I just love so much. And it's a book, looking at it on paper, I shouldn't like really. It's sci-fi, it's all about the 80s, which, you know, I like and I think it's fun, but I wasn't there and I'm not like obsessed with the 80s. And it's all about video games and just stuff that is totally not me, but for some reason that book just does it for me and I love it. It's a book I like to reread if I'm in a slump because I just know I'm gonna get invested and I'm gonna get sucked in and I'm gonna want to finish it. However, don't read the sequel because the sequel is not good. Also, the movie is one of the worst book to movie adaptations I've ever seen. It's a fun movie. I think if you haven't read the book, you could definitely enjoy it, but the book is so much better. It's like not even funny. A book that deserves all the hype it gets. These two I feel like are very popular books, but they truly just deserve the hype. I love them both so much. The first one is If We Were Villains. This is one of my favorite books ever. Another book I've actually reread a few times. It's a dark academia mystery thriller set at a school for Shakespearean actors, and it is just so good. I love it so much. And also Crying in H Mart, which is a memoir from the lead singer of Japanese Breakfast. Is that what it is? Yes, Japanese Breakfast. And it's mostly about her growing up and her relationship with her mom, who sadly has passed from cancer. And that is one of the, if not the best memoir I've probably ever read. It's fantastic. The audiobook is narrated by her too, and you can literally hear her getting emotional as she's reading the book. It's just so incredible, and I know it's so popular, but again, deserved. Another more recent book I think has gotten a lot of hype, but it deserved it, was Out on a Limb. This is an accidental pregnancy romance, which I normally hate and I know a lot of people don't like, but this one was so good and I kept seeing it all over TikTok and I wasn't sure if I was gonna like it because of the trope, but everyone said that they felt the same way and to just read it, and I'm glad I did because it is so good. I loved it. 10 is a book you usually recommend when asked to give a recommendation. So I have a few answers to this because it depends on what genre they want to read. So for romance, I always say Emily Henry, Abby Jimenez, or Christina Lauren. They're some of my favorite romance authors and I feel like they have books for whatever you're looking looking for, like trope wise and different vibes. Specifically Christina Lauren, they have a lot of books that are very different from each other, so anyone can find whatever vibe they're looking for, and they're not cringy, I don't think, at least for the most part. So I feel like they have mass appeal. If they want a thriller recommendation, I would recommend The Only One Left by Riley Sager or None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. These are just two of my favorite thrillers that I've read recently, and I feel like, again, they sort of have mass appeal. Like, I think lots of people would like them, and specifically None of This Is True if you like audiobooks, because the audiobook for that was really good. And then just as a general fiction recommendation, I would recommend Taylor Jenkins Reid. Definitely hyped up and very popular, but for a good reason. She writes well, and again, she sort of has a book for everyone. I feel like I think pretty much anyone would be interested in at least one of her books, so she's always a recommendation I give to people. A book that has your favorite characters. Listen, don't take a shot every time I mention Emily Henry, okay? It's just, I can't help it. I can't. I'm sorry, but it's Emily Henry. There are obviously like hundreds of characters that I like from books, but something about Emily Henry's characters just do it for me every time. Specifically her female main characters, I just always feel like she is in my walls. She's reading my diary, she's in my head, she knows what I'm thinking. It's sick, honestly. Her main characters just feel so real and relatable, and they just have such a special place in my heart. I love them. Love her male main characters too. She definitely has like the best love interests. I'm trying to think of if I have like another non-Emily Henry example. Oh, you know what? Heartstopper. I love the characters in Heartstopper. They are my children. I'm their mother. I want to protect them at all costs and tuck them into bed and give them a forehead kiss. I love them so much. A book you wish you could live in. This one was also really hard for me because I am a victim of the Sylvia Plath fig tree metaphor, and I want to live 100 lives. So this is more general tropes than specific books. Any cowboy romance, I truly feel like watching the Hannah Montana movies so much as a child rotted my brain, and I just always feel like I was meant to live on a farm or a ranch or something at some point. Maybe not the rest of my life, but I really think a Hannah Montana summer would fix me. Also, just any summer romance, literally period. I love summer romances, and I always just find myself wishing I was them, or wishing I was on vacation or live somewhere like that, even though I literally live at the Jersey Shore. I don't know, it's just not the same when you read about it in a book. Also, any romance where they're famous. I just think that's so much fun. Who doesn't want to be famous or has fantasized about what it would be like to be famous? A book you thought you would hate but ended up loving. Again, don't take a shot every time I talk about the Hunger Games either, but my pick for this is actually The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And Suzanne, I'm so sorry that I ever doubted you. Truly, I am. I just really did not think I was gonna like that because I heard President Snow and my brain just shut down. I was like, I don't care. It's not gonna be good. Why are we getting a President Snow book? She could have done so many other things. Haymitch, Finnick, Mags, why him? And so I put off reading it for so long. And then I finally did read it and realized I'm an idiot because of course it's good. Of course it is. I ended up loving it. I think it's so impressive to do what she did and write a villain origin story like that. It's just so impressive. She did such a good job. The way it ties in with the rest of the series and just expands on his character is just chef's kiss. I loved it. I will never doubt you again, Suzanne. I'm so sorry. Next is a book that made you cry. I cry at literally everything, so it's kind of hard for me to narrow this one down. I'm definitely a crier, but a few that came to mind are Crying in H Mart, because I remember I was listening to the audiobook at work and literally holding back tears at work because I was getting so emotional. Also, My Dark Vanessa, I remember crying. Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, I remember crying hard. Any Emily Henry book, specifically where it gets to the end and the main character like has her breakthrough or she's going through it, that always gets me. Red, White, and Royal Blue also made me cry. There's a lot. Lastly is a book you wish you could read for the first time. Again, there's so many. Obviously The Hunger Games. Also Harry Potter, specifically if I also hadn't seen the movies, just to experience that world again for the first time, I think would be so fun. Also If We Were Villains, because that book just gave me such a specific feeling that I think is hard to ever recreate because it's a mystery. So now that you know what happened, it's never gonna be quite the same. So I would love to reread that again for the first time. That was all the questions. As always, I'll have all my other socials down below if you want to find me anywhere else. And thank you so much for watching.